So you conduct walks, guided tours. This is a guided tour in a way of our country's heritage. And it is a unique perspective of India, that is Bharat, because that is, it's a union of states and some of the states are in a way neglected. So this is going to be a random walk. It is not from A to B like that. I'm just taking, but I've tried to make it chronological. But there is our heritage is vast. So I'm starting with the first, where I'm saying regional variation in iconography. And I've chosen Zhuangzhang, the Chinese pilgrim. And actually at the Vaikuntha Perumal temple in Kanchipuram, there's a small image amongst the many images. And the guides call it Zhuangzhang. I think the time matches and the features and the thing that he carries matches, because this is in Kanchipuram. And this, when Zhuangzhang Hall was constructed by the government, they installed this image as per the Chinese specifications. So these are regional differences in a way. This is at Nalanda in the 21st century. This is at Kanchipuram in the 7th century. This is another example of what I say is, this is an example where the physical environment reflects in the imagery. And you can see that this is a Ganesha image from Orissa. And you can see that the images were adorned with a necklace which consists of small little hatchlings. And this is very natural because Orissan coast even today has these olive ridley turtle hatchlings. They're called bales. So they are there in the season. So it's quite natural that it should be reflected. Then just as an introduction of why art mirrors a social environment. Because art activity is a social process. Artists, work of art, and art public, they're all interacting elements. And therefore, whatever affects or influences the society will be reflected in the differences in the art. It could be the changing social importance of symbols. It could be the changing social hierarchy of divinities. Even divinities have hierarchies. Sometimes they are in the ascendant, sometimes they disappear. I remember Santoshi Mata, it was a very popular thing at one time, and now you don't really hear about it. But also sectarian one-upmanship. That means Shaivites, Vaishnavites, Buddhists. I mean, this is all depends on the society and the mood of the society. Then the period covered, because I'm taking a look at social changes, I'm taking the period from 3rd century BC to 12th century CE, because social environments change gradually. Therefore, it has to be a long period. And this is in short what I'm going to cover today's talk, and chronologically, and it is all over. So this is 2nd, 3rd century. It starts with the stupa erected in Ashoka's time. And then it goes on, only one thing, now it is in Pakistan, but this was in Takshashila. So, and it goes on till 12th, 13th century. So that span I have covered, and gradually different changes in different places. Now, some of the points I have highlighted. So Sanchi Stupa was built by Ashoka. So it would be around 3rd century. It would be the 3rd century, but the original stupa has been enlarged, and the toranas, that is the gateways, are at a different time. They are not Ashokan time, they are the Satavahana times. And that difference you can tell because the Mauryan art is what is quote unquote empire art, because it was the Mauryan Empire. So that is very symbolic and suggestive and stern and austere and formal. I mean, conventionalism of the court art. And Ashoka's edicts very clearly stated that he prevented popular festivals. He wanted all that to be subdued so that only the Dhamma would be paid attention to. But after the Mauryan rule, then things went back a step, and Sanchi and Bharut had those toranas constructed during that time, and they reverted to the indigenous style. And it was, what was included in that, we will see. It was a revival of popular elements. It surfaced again in the both in the religion and also in the art. So they incidentally they show a strong link to the tribal and village cults. I mean, this is not necessarily reflected, though it is reflected in the sculptures, but the names, because Sanchi has more than 630 inscriptions. By inscriptions, I don't mean huge, long inscriptions. There will be small, like so and so was here, or just the names. The names in those days are linked to, and they reflect that whether they're following the cults of these nagas or yakshas or tree spirits. And the donors, that is the key thing in the Sanchi, that railing, that is the Torana inscriptions, they are variety of people. I mean, who has donated little small things, but there are monks and nuns, there are bankers, merchants, queens and kings and householders and artisans, royal scribes, masons, weavers, potters, families and villages individually and collectively. So the whole gamut is reflected there. And from the proper names, we can say, I have already said that, Yakshas, Nagas, and even goddess Sri. Because Shri in the later Vedic times, she was the goddess of abundance, fertility, blissful prosperity, and luck. Her aspect is clearly revealed in the Sri Suktas. We'll see that when we come to the Toranas. And she was gradually associated with numerous goddesses, such as Lakshmi. But original, her depiction is first with the Sri Sukta and then with the physical visual representation on the Toranas. This is just to show how stern Ashoka's rock edicts were, and they were meant for people. Therefore, they would be displayed very large on very large size rocks, and they would be at crossroads so that people would be able to see them. So this is one main difference. Then this is one of the first ones I've taken. Incidentally, I've only taken covered monuments which I've visited. So I have the photographs are mostly my own, except where like the Ganesha is from British Museum, etc. So this is from Kolua. Old name was Vaishali, and this is 3rd century BC. This is one of the earliest pillars of Ashoka. It's 11 meters high. It's monolithic, and it has that polished Junar sandstone, and it has a seated lion capital, and one of the earliest pillars. There are no edicts, but there are small, I think it's almost, you can call it a graffiti because it's in Gupta period, Shankalipi. Some things are engraved on it, but you can understand what is meant by the empirical empire art. You can see the main stupa has been enlarged. This was the original stupa. This was in Ashoka's time, but it has been enlarged, and there are other smaller stupas, votive stupas or memorial stupas are erected. But this is that monolithic 11-meter tall pillar, and this is the majestic lion on it. And see, this is Mauryan art. This is the empire art. And he's there for two purposes. He's also the symbol of the emperor, and he's also the protector of the stupa. That means he is there in his right, both as the symbol of the emperor and as the guardian of the stupa. Now, the next one I'm coming to is social history peeping through art history. That means we are going to look at two pieces, which is really art, but what else comes through? It reveals aspects of relationships between religion, politics, and society. And it also highlights the fact that unless these factors were considered, these resources were there, history would remain hidden if it was only written. So in a way, we can say that in the monuments, the old are addressing us. Visual brings to light where text do not reach. And a perfect example of this artifact, which is rich in meaning, is called Takshila gold plate inscription. And this is a point I'm making again, that whereas Ashoka's edicts were inscriptions meant to be read by everyone, This gold plate, judging from its location and lack of detail contained in it, was meant only for the Lord. Even when you perform an ordinary puja, havan at home, you have to the priest will ask you which gotra. In a way, that's like your KYC. You're saying that you belong to this gotra, so whatever punya is to be credited to, it will be credited to the correct account. So, but this is this is different. The purpose of this inscription is to convey to the Lord. And this is the fine place. It's Peshawar is here just so that you get the hang of where it is, and it is here. This small area. There was a small place called Sirka, and it was in one of the stupas that it was found, and it is absolutely stunning. It's a polished sandstone container box. They call it a box, but anyway, that is the container in which was found this crystal Hamsa, and this is the enlarged Hamsa. And this you can see is hollow. It was hollow. There are marks where a hinge might have been there, and there was a small piece of relic where it was found. There was a small piece of Buddha's relic in it, and also a gold plate. I mean, gold in the very thin gold plate, gold strip rather, and which was only less than 3 inches by 1 inch. But it had an inscription. That is the important thing. So also the shape. See, it said it in effect. What it literally said is that this was the gift of Sira. That is the name of the lady who has donated it, and she has deposited a relic of the Lord in the house of her mother and the house of her father. Now, this is that Hansa is a symbolic. And she says this, what this means is that her aspiration is that when they are reborn, they should serve as the receptacles of the Lord. And it is that because the Buddha's relic is there, and she is hoping that by placing this sort of introduction, they will be born as this bodhisattvas. And this is the ardent wish of Sira. And this is somewhat like the burial at Sanctos. This is still the, burials, even British royalty, the burial is not in the ordinary graveyard. It is in even our St. Patrick's, the one which is in our opposite town, or that cathedral has some very notable gravestones inside. So this was the same principle, that it should be in a sanctified place and it is hidden from the prying eyes. But this was a message to the Tathagata, conveying her hope. And that somehow, that that idea carries on because there is an emotional connect to it. So these are not discarded but kind of assimilated. And old concept, the Hamsa had ceased to denote only a bird. It was an alternate name for the Brahman or the Atman or the Supreme Soul, whatever you want to call it. But even in present times, it is used as an honorific. For example, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, it tells you about his height of his spirituality. And I'm showing you physical example where it is used, a symbol. This is the Buleshwar temple. It is a hotspot because the main central shrine is original, but a lot of restoration, additions, and sort of sequestering some fragments. And there is this cell at the end of the corridor. You can see this is the one of the corridors. This is on the north side. There is a small cell, and this is something salvaged from somewhere else, erected here. On the beam there is an image of something that looks like a Bhairava Rakshasa, not a very pleasant figure. And this is a regular Pacific looking guru-like image. So this is the same thing from inside the cell looking out. If you step outside, this is because it's the other side. So therefore, this is the guru-like figure, and this is the Daitya-like figure. And you can see there are paintings, old paintings of fish. Some of them are still remaining there. And on the side of this is both inside and outside. Next to the image of this guru-like person, you have these symbols, and I have enlarged one of these, and you can see there is a Hamsa here who is riding on a fish. Now, fish is the cognizance of Matsyendranath. So it is possible that this connects to some legend about Matsyendranath. There are many legends, but this is one of them. So I'm just stressing that the idea of Hamsa carries on still. So that brings me to another idea. This is the idea before the advent of image worship, construction of temples, etc. People worshipped ordinary things which they considered holy, protective spirits, and one of them was a tree spirit. And although this is part of the Barhut railing, and this is just one of the panels, and although this is not part of Buddhism, it still feels that it somehow protects. It's like whatever the function or a good day, we hang these mango leaves, toran, we tie to these are protectors in a way. So I think the same way in Maharashtrian weddings, they have the Mangalashtaka, which actually have no connection to the wedding. They are singing about, they are saying, invoking Ganga, Sindhu, Saraswati, Yamuna. That means they are invoking all the rivers. Kurvantu vo Mangalam, that is the expressed wish. So also they invoke even the 14 gems that were the product of Samudra Manthan, Lakshmi Kaustubha Parijataka Sura. So same way, on the Buddhist stupa, the railing has a tree spirit. You can see the tree, you can see the worshipper, and you can see a hand coming out and pouring water to give him whatever it is, the boon being granted. So this is again an example of ideas keep repeating in different forms, different importance, but they keep repeating. They're never discarded. I like this because this I think is funny. Of course, one of my scholar friends tried to explain to me that this is part of a Jataka. But I think what I see is that there is this is the original. I've just expanded it. You can see there is a man sitting there and there are monkeys around, and this monkey is trying to, do something so that his attention is distracted. And I think this is an extraction of his tooth because this enormous thing, pincer-like thing is, and he can see he has opened his mouth and it is being, it's closed now, and it is tied with a strong rope to an elephant. And the elephant, this man has that ankush, he's going to poke him with it. And I think it's going to be a synchronous movement. He is going to poke. He is going to sound these big drums or cymbals. This one is actually a monkey biting the elephant's tail. And this one is blowing a big horn. All this will result in the elephant taking off and extracting the tooth with it. I think that is what it is, the extraction of the tooth. But anyone can come out with a different explanation. No inscriptional evidence. Now, this is another thing, surprisingly, I came across it in the Allahabad Museum. And this looks like our Janmashtami festival. But this is, we don't know what is here, but we do know that that's a human pyramid. So some of the things, they reflect that these were there in society then. We come to the concept of the Shri now. Shri is remember, this is the time when the only source of prosperity was agriculture. Trade was not yet that big. So this represents, in the Shri Sukta also, it represents the adjectives that are used for Shri, stress her fertility aspect, because she is called Ardra, that means the wet one, green, alive. All these refer to the surgeon, that is the generative properties. And she represents the earth, Bhudevi, and these represent the clouds. So the clouds, when both the fertile soil and rains are there, then it results in agricultural prosperity, good crops. So she is there. I mean, this figure, different forms. She's seated, she is standing at Kailas, I think she is being showered by 4 elephants instead of just 2. But everywhere she is there. And I have taken this from the one of the Toranas, North Torana, I think, and its outer face. But this is on every, that means there are 4 toranas, 4 gates. Inside, that means inside face as well as outside face, there is at least one image of this Shri. And to distinguish, because there is some doubt sometimes, because there is a lady standing with the elephants. But if it is one elephant, this is typically Maya Devi's dream, where the elephant, the divine elephant, is shown entering her womb in her dream, indicating to her that something divine noble is going to be born of her. Whereas this is another Lakshmi only. She is seated on a lotus, and she's either seated here, and this is of prosperity. This is always the pose. She touches her breast. That is also described in the Sukta. So these are Lakshmi figures. This is Maya Devi. Lakshmi in the sense, sorry, I should call it Shri, because she has not yet become Lakshmi. No, she has not morphed into Lakshmi yet. And this again I like very much, because this is simple art. These are the Torana panels that were sponsored by so many people, like I rattled off all the list, monks and nuns and masons and everybody, anybody. Now you can see these are familiar things. I mean, she is grinding something. She is also grinding something, but this is the one that is standing. These are also, even now they are found in museums where they have a four-legged, these are not coins, but whatever, these are the grinding stones. She is winnowing, she is pounding, and here also there is a lady bent over with a pitcher or this thing, and she's drawing water from a lake. There are cattle, and he had probably gone fishing, because he's carrying uh, a fishing rod, maybe, I do not know, but there is a water pot perhaps attached to the, hanging by that, and he's carrying a whole length of rope. I do not know, but he is, and that people watching is a hobby here also. You have seen the people just standing around on balconies, and in general, I like that. And there are also synoptic narratives. I had to look up synoptic, to be honest, but then I realized that I have used the word synopsis many times. So this is synoptic in that sense. It's in one shot, it's representing the entire tale, and this is from here to here. And it is the Jataka stories, because by that time, Jatakas have been written. So it's about the story of, this is the serpent king who is in the water body, and he has come out, and on his expanded, what do you call it, hood, is his daughter. And there is a Brahmin here who is half submerged in water, is worshipping. And the story is that this king wanted an answer from Buddha about one of his doubts about the religion. And the Brahmin offered to get him that from the Buddha if he would let him marry the daughter. So the Brahmin obtains that answer, and here he is shown in his human form with his 2 queens. And this, you see, this is still the time where Buddha is not displayed as a person. It is only symbol. So this is a tree which has been garlanded, and this man is now worshipping at the feet of the Buddha. And that is also because this is Naga is not really Naga, considered as a Naga, but more like a people. So I come to this. This is outside of Rajgir, and when I went there, this is the state it was in. But a few years ago, when American Institute of Indian Studies, their archives have these figures. There are obviously Naga figures, Naga Nagis, and they're not there anymore. And this is all that is left, which in effect reflects on us, the current society. There are also in Mathura, there are architectural fragments, and this is from a lintel, and this is from the upsidal. There is an excavated Naga temple which is upsidal and in shape, and you can see the Naga queen, Naga king, and their entire retinue, and they're shown in human form. And there are the inscription refers to the sthana for Naga Dadikaran. Therefore, it shows that Nagas were also worshipped. Now, of course, in what form they were worshipped, do not know. But even today, we see a lot of Naga sculptures in temples, donated by people. They are outside of the main sculptural plan, but they are there. So this is another aspect of what is can be called as illuminating the invisible. So this is there's nothing that scriptures that will say that such and such were the Naga kings, but they're there. In a way, through the monuments, the old are addressing us. So visual brings to light where the texts do not reach. I've already said that before. Now this I say that these freeze frames is like a metaphorical family album. We are, after all, India is a union of states, and this is the family, Indian family, and going back a few generations. And I'm saying that these are cousins you didn't even know existed in the family. For example, this was a Nagamosha dynasty. I'm following that Naga theme. So Nagamosha dynasty, and it ruled in the Chhattisgarh area for nearly 5 centuries. And you can see it is perfect example of a temple which is still intact. It has the Trijanga Mandovara, then it has the Shikhara, Bhumija Shikhara, it has the Shukanasa, it has the three Mukhamandapas. So, and what is important is you can see the barricades, permanent barricades, indicating that we may not have heard it, but there are enough people who flock to this temple on special days or on festival days, or but that means this is still in worship. And of course, you can see the society reflected here. It has the price for so and so, so many rupees for this puja, so many rupees for this puja. That is our society. So this, and another one of these cousins, forgotten cousins, are the Vakatakas. But I'm talking not of the famous Vakatakas, which are associated with Ajanta, but they were the minor branch. The main branch was the other branch. And I have given you this map of Maharashtra. You can see what this Vatsagulma branch is Washim. And this was the one which led to the Harishena. Okay, next one I have the ones which were Mandar, they are from Nagpur. This is the main branch. It is near Nagpur, Ramtek, Pavnar, and this is the dynasty map. This Pravarasena was the first noted, that means in Puranas is noted. He's actually part of the Purana, is that old? It's 270. I should have gone CE, not AD, but this is from Mirash's book. And this is the main branch. And this was the Vatsagulma, that is Washim branch. And it is here that you see Harishena. And it was his minister who has who's left an inscription at Ajanta. So we know Walter Spink has very clearly reconstructed the chronology. But the main branch, they also have some king named Bhavanag. And the main thing about it was that this Rudrasena, Prithvisena, son, Rudrasena, married the daughter of Chandragupta Vikramaditya. It was a big thing for the Vakatakas because this Chandragupta Vikramaditya was quite a powerful king. And this is, remember, this is 400 CE AD. And I have purposely given two color identities. Pravarasena, that means old, 3rd century. I have given the remains structural temples in, I have described them with magenta, whereas the ones which are later, 5th century, same main branch, but they're 5th century, they are in blue outline. Now this is again Mansa, that means this is the older 3rd generation, and you can see their huge structure. This is on the way to Ramtik. You find this fortress and it is very elaborately, you can see perfect rectangles, perfect passages, and there are these pilastra moldings, and it is very huge. And even better than that is this figure which was found. It is absolutely gorgeous. And it was found in 1972. a nearby place, and this very name, Hidimba Tekdi, is not a Nagara name. It is obviously from the area which is forested and populated by Adivasis. And you can see that this is being so good, it's all naturally in the National Museum, but and it has been identified as the definitely a representation of Shiva. You see, it has a Jata Mukuta and it has that crescent moon, and it has the association with the snakes is there. His Nupuras are also Sarpa Nupuras, and he is seated in a very nice fashion, and he is actually wearing a loincloth. Its folds are coming out here. So this is that. This is the what should I say? I don't want to say civilized, but Nagara. And this is found Bola Hudki. Again, it tells you that this is in the interior, and it is the later, because along with it there were some, I mean, somebody had obviously tried to save everything in a hurry, and they put everything together, and there were two copper plates also, but the copper plates help sort of place the decide on the era of these. And you can see that this is not following any Shilpa Shastra. This is their own. The Acharya has probably tried to convey to him what should be represented, and this is how they have conveyed. And I think it makes sense to me. I mean, my interpretation is we have many gods with multiple heads. I mean, Kartikeya has 5, Shadanan actually 6, Brahmadeva has 4, and so many. Because we are people, that religion is propagated by people who think. So the heads are important, whereas these are people who work with their hands. So they have decentralization. They have, each arm has a head, each leg has a head. It makes sense, I think. So, and then that 8-headed thing, Sadashiva, is TK. But, and you can see their physique. Even these, which are really very nice images, they are beautiful in the way. This is Parvati performing penance, and this is the that long grass woven into this thing, Kati Sutra, and her hair is just tied and let free. This is Balarama, because he was the avatar of Sheshana. Therefore, you can see at the back, you can see the part of the snake part of it. So now you compare these two. This is the reflection of society. You see, the anatomical features are the same. That means the models must have been the same. But what was portrayed for the people who were in the forest was ithyphallic, and it had no clothes, and its Jatabhara is just like this, whereas he is very, very nicely organized Jatabhar. He has that crescent moon and all these. So this was before the Vishnu Dharmottara Purana period, but even there, being in a Nagara society, literate society, literate in the sense at least a few of them could read Sanskrit, but this was the regular autochthon society. And to me, these both represent concepts, and in a way, they're both magnificent as art objects. And this reference to Vishnu Dharmottara, this is afterwards. This is after the time of Vishnu Dharmottara, this is before the time. But this is also identified as Mahasadashiva. We have identified it as Mahasadashiva. We don't know what he was considered then. And this is the structural temple, and this is what is bad about the Vakataka main branch being neglected, because these are structural temples. There is this Rudra Narasimha temple actually has an inscription by Prabhavati Gupta, which is dated to, I mean, she is definitely dated to 5th century, 400 and something. So this is still in our history books or heritage books. Devghat temples, Gupta temples are still called the oldest structural temples. That's not true. And this, you have to go there to believe it. I mean, I was standing right, I mean, at the entrance, there is only the small enclosed mandapa, and which is inside is this image. And it's more than I mean, it's more than life size and simple, no ornaments, but it just makes you feel, I mean, you are struck with awe because when you look at this temple, you don't know what to expect. And you go there and you suddenly see this. Only ornament is this Chudamani. Of course, Dr. Jamkirkar identified it. I wouldn't have known it. This is the chakra and a simple pose, and it's very, very effective. And this is another example. You see, this is at Ramtik, and this is at Paunar. Paunar was Pravarapura. That means this was Pravarasena had established this. His mother was this Gupta princess, Prabhavati Gupta. So she had insisted on building a temple, and she is Ganga. I mean, she reminds me of sculptures by Modigliani, but she is very beautifully done. And what is more important, there is a Brahmi inscription which identifies her as Ganga Bhagavati. And this is the Makara Vahana. That means iconography has started already. And this is the stark contrast between the two Nagara society and tribal society. And this is again another very vivid example. This is from Ramtek. And Ramtek, remember, the Vakatakas originally were Shaivites. The original main branch was Shaivite. They would call themselves Shaivites. But with under the influence of the rich daughter-in-law, they have all been converted to Vaishnavism. And this is by the father. That means this was in honor of Chandragupta. One of his generals erected this statue. This is at Udayagiri. This is a Varaha avatar at Udayagiri. And you see, this is the importance is about to show the power of this Varaha, who is representing metaphorically Chandragupta, who rescued his kingdom from the Hunas. And this poor Bhumi is hanging on for dear life from his tusk because she is not that important. This is all about the Varaha. And this is also the same Varaha. And it's the same period because this is erected by his daughter. But look at it. It's pure, raw, like horsepower. This is Varaha power. And you can see the arm of the person. This was a mistake on my part taking photos, but I've used it as a scale to show you how large the Varaha is. And this is the front here, also part of the Bhumi hanging on to the Bhu that he is rescuing, hanging on to his tusk. And it is the rudimentary beginning of a mandapa. But see this, now it is not just the Varaha alone, because there are stories about it, Puranic stories, so much paraphernalia is around it. Whereas this one is just, and there is a Sheshanag under it to indicate that he is an avatar of Vishnu. So this is that difference, society, tribal society versus society staying in Nagaras. This is Udayagiri, this is Ramtek. And this is the distance, of course. But what I want to convey is that in a way, our greatest endowment is our brain, which is less than 2 kilograms of gray matter. It varies, but less than 2 kilograms. And in the present lingo, I can say that brain is the hardware and the socio-cultural conditioning is the software, which keeps getting updated. But when we go to analyze sculptures, we have to rethink and we have to think with the older version of the socio-cultural software. We need to consider the temporal variations, the limitations, and think like them. Going on with the same reference and, catching that thread. This is that Bhuvaraha. This is a picture by glass picture. But on this side, I don't remember noticing it. Maybe they're not there anymore, or we are so awed by this figure that we forget to look at them. But this is Ganga and Yamuna Avataran that he has noted. Now, this is Gupta times, and this is a temple of the Devi at Tigoa. It's in Madhya Pradesh. And it is an intact 5th century. See, George Michel, Tigoa temple. He calls it it's freestanding temples of the freestanding temples erected during the Gupta rule, and only those at Sanchi and Tigawa have been completely preserved. This is the sketch. and there is Ganga on the top side and Yamuna on the right side. So both, of course, eventually, by the time they come to us, the Ganga Yamuna rivers are standing here. But this is the 5th century, that is the beginning. This is the beginning where the rivers sanctifying whatever the place, they are there. A funny thing, Ganga is holding, I mean, she's standing under a custard apple tree. She seems to be holding a custard apple. You could call it Matulunga, but it looks very much like a custard apple. And this one, Yamuna is standing under a mango tree, but she is standing on the tortoise and she is standing on the makara. So that part is already there. So that brings me to Chhattisgarh. Now, Chhattisgarh is another cousin which you did not know existed, simply because Chhattisgarh itself came into being much, much later. I think it might have been in the 90s that the Chattis tribal towns together, Chhattisgarhs, 36, they were combined together into a separate state. But it had been Dakshin Kosal, that area was called that. And it was prosperous and it had a great culture. This is built, it was dedicated to Vishnu and it was built around mid 7th century. And it's absolutely stunning, absolutely stunning. And the Dwara Shakhas are so beautifully done. And by the grace of God, we reached there early morning when the sun was directly falling on this. Dwara Shakha will be on this side. So this was there and very ornate and very beautiful. What is more is in 2008 in the same Sirpur, there are many Buddhist shrines, Jaina images also there, but they actually found a hoard of 79 bronze images. And not only that, this was found in the Buddhist monastery site. Along with that, there were earthen crucibles, metal slags, and ingots, and inscription. One of the statues was inscribed, which also had the names of the Shilpins. That means 7th century. So many things were going on. And more importantly, there was Vaishnava temples, there were Buddhist this monasteries, there were Jain temples, and there was no animosity, no polarization. And this I'm giving as another example, a similar chronology. But this is something we would never have seen, and if we had this, Dr. Swaminathan had not written this book. This is part of the Dharmaraja Ratha of Mahabalipuram. Now, Dharmaraja Ratha is 3-storied, but unfortunately, we can walk in only the ground story, simply because it was carved like the Kailasa. It was from top down and it was left unfinished. So the ground floor is unfinished, but as a result, there is no staircase to go to the upper floor. But he had, with permission of ASI, he took photographs, and you can see how simple they are. And what is even more interesting is that this is Tandu, that is Shiva's foremost disciple, and Shiva is teaching him dance, and that is why it is called Tandava. So very simple. How would you know this was Shiva? No crescent moon, nothing. But he has that Trishula to signify that is Shiva, and he is learning the steps from Shiva. Similarly, there are many other figures also, but one of them is the cook. And this is still how the current priests carry the prasada that they cook themselves. They carry it on their right shoulder, supported by right hand. It's wearing a yajna pavitra. And this is actually Dakshinamurti. Now, the current Dakshinamurti is all the Shiva as the teacher is seated under a tree and is surrounded by 4 disciples. Here is just simple person, and he has the gestures which identify him as the Dakshinamurti. And so this is a superlative spiritual art. This art is for sort of conveying to us the concepts. Now we come back to Chhattisgarh 11th century. See how far they have progressed. But they have also their own style. Now, this is the whole picture, the whole front of the temple. And you can see their proportions. We are not used to these proportions. If this is the door to the temple, then our figures end. They have only this much height, and then you have the Dwara Shaka. But here they are more than half the size of the doors, And there actually, this is only one remaining. This is the Vamana avatar. That means whatever was there was not inside, it was all displayed outside. There must have been another Vishnu avatar here. And this Naga, uh, inclusion of the Nagas is here. I mean, this is the standard Dwarapala, but these decorations also have this. This also the Nagabandha. This is Naga Nagi. I have enlarged it in the next slide, you see. And unfortunately, these parts are broken. But here the Nagi part remains, and from this the Naga part remains. So you can see that the Naga and Nagi are intertwined and forming this decoration. This is Naga and Nagi in worship around the entrance. So these are things that are typical of their way of their iconography, their iconographic scheme. And this is something really you have to see it to believe it. This is at Americapa. It's about 8 feet tall, huge image, and it really is. Don't know what. This is not coming from any acharya's teaching. It is their own imagination. Now, see this image. This nose is a lizard. Ears are peacocks. They're shiki. That means they have the crown, and there are snakes. And this is a makara, and you have faces and faces, and these fingers are actually snakes. And it is so huge. And it is also located in two huge temple remains. And this is how it is there. For its own protection, it has been, and Riddhi is trying to capture it piece by piece, because there's no way you can capture through the bars what part you can capture. But you can see here the crab chin and the turtle, the neck of the turtle. And you see, as you go down, the human faces, here they become animal faces. Whatever was that was, the person was trying to convey is beyond us, but it is a riddle. 2.7 meters high and weight is like 5 tons. And unlikely that it was somewhere else. It was probably right here, but it got buried in the structure. Then it was excavated, and it is. When they had a conference, they said that no matter how many uh, proposals you give for explanation, this is going to remain a riddle unless we find some textual reference. Unlikely anyone who had figures like this would write about it. Anyway, so that brings me to the other end. So also this is in Gurgi, Rewa, Madhya Pradesh, and this is a Toran. And it was at another place in front of a temple, but it has been the local Raja was he had it rescued and he erected it in front of his palace. And you can see there are the two guards. From the size of the guards, you can imagine how large the Toran must have been. And this is the front face, and this is the back face. Here you can see again same Toran, the other side. And this is from the book of this is archaeological survey book, and I've taken the photos from this original book, which is there in the British Library. And I have taken illustrated, this is the Torana, and only this part I have taken, and this part to illustrate how much in detail they have taken pains to carve this. This is the Vivaha, Shiva Uma Vivaha. And you see, it starts from here. This is a Nandi with only one rider. Then in the middle, the Nandi is seated, he's getting down, and perhaps he's getting down and then getting married, Pani Grahana. And then here, when they leave, both of them are seated here. And you have Kartikeya here, and you have Ganesha here, and this is just the front. At the back, they're all going in one direction. So likely to be Bharat is going back after the wedding. I don't know. But I mean, look at the effort that was, and this was Gurgi. And this is where the Shaiva Siddhanta Math, the whole cluster of maths is there, spread around there. And the secret of they were like a church. in the sense they were very organized and they were all celibate, but they had their disciples and amongst them they chose, so they had a Santana Parampara. That means they could have a lineage going 5, 6 generations. And it so happens that in this case, they were Rajagurus. They were Rajagurus so that you have a lineage of the kings, and parallel to that, you have the lineage of the Rajagurus, Santana. So that this is what I mean, what we can glean from is that the secret of perpetuity of a line, whether it is royal line or the religious line, it's not dictated by the biological heirs. You have to choose the disciple, train them, and then they become worthy of being the or propagating the same Santana Parampara. That brings me to another temple, which is Virateshwar at Shahdol. Shahdol was originally called Sohagpur. It had been in the Gupta control, then Chedis, then Kalchuris, and finally the Gonds took over. And this town was established by Baghel king Sohagadev, therefore it's called Sohagapur. And now it has become Shahdol. But you can see, I mean, the proportions are different. Our aesthetics, for this kind of size mandovara, we would not have expected such a tall, 70 feet tall shikhar. But the shikhar is magnificent. It has so many elements in it, so many shikharikas, and it has the Shukanasa, and it has the Shukanasa also has a balcony, and there are porches, three jangha, three horizontal, and these are like almost like the Markandi in Maharashtra or Khajuraho. You have the Vasus. These are the deities. You know, Bhishma was one of the Ashtavasus. So, I mean, reborn as a human being. But these are the Vasus, Dikpalas, and the amorous couples also. So, this is something that one of the R.N. Mishra, who studies sculptures of Dahala and Dakshina Koshal. This area in those days was called Dakshin Koshala. He says that in spite of this temple also being dedicated and built as a gift to the Acharya of the Matta Mayura clan, which is one of the Shaiva Siddhanta branches. See, it was Shaiva Siddhanta, yet some of the Acharyas were so erudite and so famous that their Parampara, Santana Parampara, could actually claim another name for itself. Though they were all originally, they all were Shaiva Siddhantin. So you see that this is elaborate, and R.N. Mishra mentions that in spite of the fact that they were supposed to be celibate and not do anything, and they were supposed to lead such a clean and religious life, and yet the temple dedicated to them had these pictures, means that decision was determined by something else, some social pressure, social, not pressure, convention of the artist guilds. And this is
Dr. Karnitkar, if I may interject, can we
required.
try and wrap up in about 5 minutes, and we can leave some time for Q&A after that?
Oh dear. Okay, I'm still
Thank you.
halfway through only, I think. But anyway, this is a signature Natasha of the Shaiva Siddhanta, and this is the ornate Dvarashaka, and this takes me to another thread, the regional effect of the Shiva. And this is from Assam. Well, I mean, this is from Dhaka, this is from Assam. But the very nature of it shows that he's dancing on Nandi and is ithiphallic. This has been vandalized later, later society's reflection on it. But this is very different. And you see that in the this Vaitala Devul at Bhubaneswar also, same thing. Nandi is part of, so this is the autochthonous influence in the sense Adivasis is always a communal dance. The community, whole community dances. It's not Shiva dancing on 108 Karanas. Whereas Ambarnath, this is an effect, this is an aspect of Rudra. So therefore, this is more related to the theory. This is more related to the actual local effect. And the another one of that is this Gangaikonda Cholapuram, the temple which Rajendra Chola built. And that image, there was one image he has brought from there, but it's only displayed as a photo because it is that style, and this would not do. And this is where the kings was probably overruled by the acharyas, and it's stored in this small Amrutakateshwara temple. And I come to Maharashtra. This is Yadava times, and this is built in honor of a general's son killed. And you can see the Dwara Shakas now don't have musicians, but they have warriors. This is the most important thing that I would like to. This is Amda Naganath. It has the Gajatara, but this is not Gajatara. There are 6 sides to the side walls on the 3 porches, and each of the side has a horse. The lady mounted on a horse, leading the elephant phalanx, and these are not processional elephants; these are war elephants. And I had to look for the explanation, so I looked for it. I found it in Dr. Ritti's inscriptions, and there is actually an inscription which mentions a lady, Sahini. She is the female officer, and then 20 years later, she is again mentioned, but as a Sarvadhikari. That means she has risen in the rank, and it reflects the status of women. They could become high ranking. And here is Brahma, poor man. He was simply discarded because of sectarian rivalry. Now, this is the picture from the ASI survey, and you can see that we have attached a Shaivite sign because we haven't understood who he was. So this is our this thing is as bad as chalk written hearts and arrows. This should not have been there. And that Brahma was also in worship is an example in a statue 1995 found from Siddheshwar Lake in Thana. It's more than 6 feet tall, 6 feet and 4 inches tall. And the thing is, it is in the round. That means when you go around it, you find a 4th face. And you see how like a ghost, the feet are this side because this is the back face. And it is there, which means that it was a cult figure. That means it was a Brahma temple, image from a Brahma temple. And we just casually say there is no other Brahma temple except Pushkar. And I have a lot of photographs of Brahma temples I have visited, and there are many, many more in the American Institute Reserve. Then I'll just touch upon the Nathas at Bhuleshwar and their insistence on everything being equal, and in addition to Sanskrit being translated to Marathi by Jnaneshwar, we have here Gunadya, who wrote the Bruhat Katha, or they are attributed to him. They were written in Paishachi language, which was the local language of the Vindhyaranya. And this I could challenge you. You will not find a huge panel depicting Gunadya, who wrote in Paishachi language, and any other temple on this scale. And this is the entire beam at Bhuleshwar, and he is seated there, and he's reading and burning them because the king was too vain to accept it. And the animals are enthralled, and they're listening to him in rapt attention. And it's worth reading. The stories are very interesting, and you see the details, birds, animals, creepy crawlies, everybody is listening to him. This is the entire beam. It is part of the restoration. You can see it's not part of the original. This is brought from somewhere else. And I end with this slide simply because I want to make sure that we understand that we must retain proper perspective. We are not hum kya great the ya hum kya great hai. Not so. We have to keep the proper perspective, and we should not let wrong ideas about ourselves, spread. And this is from Buldana district. And I have one only slide left because I had to do this because this is all right, the Shastras and Shilpa Shastras and the river goddess and these frolicking gunners, but someone couldn't resist inserting a little frog in it. So, thank you.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. That's really interesting. I mean, I have a very basic question, and pardon me for asking something so basic, but making temples and of course the friezes, the sculptures, the decorator them would have been very expensive and time consuming, and a lot of effort goes into them, right? Why were temples built? I mean, what is their purpose? And ultimately, I guess, why are they so important in shaping, art and culture in India?
Well, they were centers of power. There's no doubt about that. I mean, even today we can see that they are the centers of power. But also, originally, there was, like you saw the Narasimha temple at Ramtek. It's a simple structure. You wanted to have a nice serene place where you could sort of look inwards, maybe worship. And what you, that is why, okay, so that is, then the power was also there and the influence, like Shaiva Siddhanta Acharyas, the kings would consider themselves only as the custodians. And they would donate the, almost the whole kingdom to the Acharya. And they had the hereditary rights. The hereditary in the sense their santana, their samstha would carry it on. So even, today, why do you think we erect such huge statues? There has to be some logic, the same logic that was there in those days for building temples. Conjecture,
Yeah.
no proof.
So, what I found interesting from your early slides, I think, is how ordinary people contribute to building some of these temples. I think you mentioned third century and so on. Is there a distinction in the art commissioned by royalty versus that commissioned by common people? The, and
Yeah.
is there any commentary there about different classes prevalent in medieval India and kind of the power structure that existed and how that changed over time? Is there anything to be conjectured from that?
And I think a lot of the work will have to be done on that and following that idea. But it is obvious at Sanchi and Bharhut also. It is obvious that when people are, I mean, it's seen in the village temples also. Village temples, they are very simple. Sometimes we even have just a stone, what in Marathi is called tandara. It's just a stone, and which is worshipped. So it's it's what the way you think. This is how you think. And tirthas have an importance. It's not enough that you have this, but then you go to the Ashtavinayak. I mean, there are temples of Ganesha everywhere. But then that Tirthasthan acquires, they acquire this accretion only. Legends develop, and that thing, our need to do something which is with the crowd, not by ourselves. Like Vitala temple, so many people. And that is the tradition that has remained from the time of the Nathas, Naneshwar time also. That means they walk. I have on my one of my flights, there was a Shankaracharya on the flight. I was absolutely flabbergasted. He should be walking, he should not be flying. Anyway, one of the lesser, not the main Peter Shankaracharyas, but still.
So my assumption before this was that temple friezes and things would have been to display some grand moral religious themes, philosophy that was to be propagated. But I found very interesting to see, the references you made, the sculptural descriptions of very ordinary domestic scenes, like the orthodontist that you showed. Why would they have shown scenes like this from daily life? And how much expense and effort and time would have gone into this? Was there some message here that was that they were trying to convey,
No, I
or
mean, there,
are we overreading it?
no, the purse was limited. If he could donate only one plaque, not the whole Torana, then
Yeah.
he would decide that this is what he wanted. It's each to his own. I mean, what he wanted portrayed there. It was not organized. It was not dictated by the Acharya. It was not a whole part of the whole scheme. It was only there outside. And therefore, only where it was definitely documented as being donated by the people.
I mean, I've got a lot of messages. I think people have also sent me one-on-one saying, really good talk. Thank you so much. Really interesting. PK says, excellent talk. Learned a lot. Thank you very much. Masterful. Even in philosophy, we have learned something called street photography, says Arvind. So there's a question here from Adil Desai. Were the Buddhist stupas the original memorial structures with relics placed inside them? Or were these types of relic stupas prevalent from before Buddhist times also?
I I do not know. I mean, what I know is limited to India. I do not know about other places, but there are burials in even in Inamgaon and all, where you have Harappan. I mean, look at mummies, 5,000 years of Egyptian there is something there. But within India, other than these Harappan cultures, Mohenjo-daro, I mean, there are Inamgaon. I think I'm mixing up the time period, but these are eras which is much, much before large cities or everything was developed. These were mostly across the rivers that these civilizations were there, but that burial practice was there.
Jyoti has a question. I always thought the Gupta dynasty were Devi Bhakts. How was it identified they were Shaivite and then converted? Question mark.
See that? Could you repeat that?
I always thought the Gupta dynasty were Devi Bhakts. How was it identified? They were Shaivite and then converted? Question mark. I'm not
No, Guptas were Vaishnavites.
okay.
But there, because of the influence of their one of the daughters of Chandragupta marrying the Vakatakas into she temporarily, but then they went back to being Shaivites again. It's depends on the influence of whatever is locally popular. I think it's not that much. I mean, they were not, the kings were Shaivites, doesn't mean that they really studied the Shaiva scriptures or anything. But they found that I mean, everybody needs a solace of something to, I think even Sunita Williams, I don't know who she's invoking right now. If you're going around for 8 months, seeing 16 sunsets and sunrises a day,
Yeah.
I think you would want to have some source of faith. I mean, that is a basic necessity.
And another question from me actually, as you pointed out to it in your deck. So a lot of our heritage, especially the temple art, is facing threats of erosion, damage, and so on. I mean, from your vantage point, you've been there to a lot of these temples. What challenges do you see in preserving these sculptures? And any efforts that you're aware of to protect this part of our heritage, as opposed to whatever is being done by ASI on a grander scale about temple preservation?
It
Uh,
is, I think, awareness of what should be done, and under the name of, I mean, so many things are being done which are detrimental. Like they have loudspeakers belting out artis, and I mean, if you accept that kidney stones are broken by sonic waves, you don't think 1,000-year-old stone will crumble under that, or they pour water, they pour milk. And even the essay, they try, like Ambernath, the essay was there with me, and he was also we were trying to convince the people. He said that these are not, unki prana pratishtha nahi hui hai. The outside sculptures are not sanctified like the one in the sanctum.
mm,
So they are more like decoration. They convey the concepts. They actually prepare you. In a way, it's like a preparation. You do a pradakshina. You're preparing your mind to get into that focus, and then you enter the Garbhagriha. There's a big theology beyond that, but we just, and we go straight in, and even in the small temple like Ambernath, they, with all their might, they ring the bells in an enclosed space. It's different in the outside because they are not really, I mean, that awareness has to be there, that this is our heritage, that it means something. They're not random, like we hang pictures in our living room. It's not like that. There is a definite sign. I mean, there is just definite thought process behind it. They're trying to express concepts, but it's each temple offers different things to different people depending upon what they're looking for. I'm not very good at this, but what I do is I observe and I try to find why it is done. And observation means, like Amarnath, I spent 13 years just going around it and looking at the photos and looking at it. And it doesn't hit you right away. The key doesn't come to you. It's like trying to do a Rubik cube. It doesn't come until you really understand how to do it.
So one last question before we let you go. What inspired you to start studying temple art after your career in chemistry? I mean, and I guess follow on is what's been the most surprising thing you've discovered along the way?
There are many actually. I mean, there are so many. I mean, there's no end to what I find. But the beginning was because the our family, the tradition was that if you find something wrong, you do something about it. Don't say someone must do something about it. And when I went to Ambernath first, I had read up, I had done some homework, and I just happened to go there. And I looked for the inscription, and they said, no, it's not there. And that really shook me up. If it is not there, how come it is not there? So then I started working on it, and then I got like a whirlpool draw. It kept on drawing me inside further and further, deeper and deeper, and I enjoyed it. It made sense. Every time I went, I found something different. And it comes gradually. Like I say, it's like enlightenment. I'm nowhere there, but I can understand why enlightenment comes after many years of doing the same things.
Anyway, so there's more messages coming in about how the interesting the talk has been. Nara and Neelam says very interesting and a lot of learning. Thank you very much. And I've also been getting, as I said, one-on-one messages for some reason, but a lot of appreciation for the talk. So Dr. Kanitkar, thank you so much for your wonderful talk this evening.
It was
And
my
to everyone else, thank you for joining us and see you again soon next week.